Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Rashad Bakira here on RB Media 323. I'm going to give you my preview for the 2024-2025 National Championship game, college football National Championship game between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, my take will be similar in some ways to others out there, pundits, commentators, analysts, and the like. And probably some of your own thoughts to how you see the game going. But we certainly will know come Monday night. So in this preview, I'm just going to dial in a few things that I see with respect to that and everything, so you know. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just kind of take us to how we got here through the playoff bracket. So I'm not going to take it from each team's total season. We'll start with the playoff because that's sort of like the restart for these teams. And secondly, you just get a different team, from the regular season to the playoffs, as we have seen. So with Ohio State hosting in the first round Tennessee, so Ohio State was ranked number 8, Tennessee ranked number 9. A lot of people did not know what to expect of Ohio State due to the fact that they came off an embarrassing loss to their arch rival, Michigan Wolverines, at home for the final Big Ten regular season game, which knocked the Ohio State out of the Big Ten Conference Championship game. And so many people were either thinking Ohio State was going to go one way or the other way. Either they were going to gather together like their backs against the wall and come out fighting and just start playing up to the level of which people expect them to play with all the talent that they do have, or that they were just fractured and going up against a team like Tennessee, they would just, lose that game, right? And there was enough pressure, enough heat already on Coach Ryan Day of the Buckeyes, as it were, and many people were calling for his head, calling for him to be fired, etc. So, as it goes. Now, as we all know, Ohio State came out like gangbusters. Ohio State looked like the team that a lot of people thought that they could be, and with their talent and with their potential. And they got new life. They were very confident. They were very edgy. They were very much focused in the whole ball of wax. They played pretty much a perfect game as far as watching how that game shaped out. And you can kind of see the tone was set from go. From the minute that they came out and scored, it was on, and then they just continued from there. So Tennessee really didn't have an answer for him, and it was noticeable. It was already questionable in terms of the Tennessee quarterback, Nico, who is similar to me when I look at him, of Quinn Ewers, which you'll get to the next game, or 2 games down, with Ohio State and Tennessee, as someone who was inconsistent, okay? And so and his passing game isn't at an elite level. Okay, still work in progress and stuff. And so, like I said, Ohio State built up a strong early lead and pretty much was at that point running away with the game. And so they did their business with Tennessee and then moved on. Now, the move on part is getting to new conference mate Oregon, who was number 1 ranked, undefeated, and then playing in the Rose Bowl game, a game that I actually went to, okay, expecting it to be a barn burner and so forth, which it wasn't. But it was a fun game nonetheless. And I would say there was probably maybe 60-40 Oregon to Ohio State fans there. Very close, percentage between the two fan bases. I thought that certainly that probably because of the proximity that Morgan would have more fans than Ohio State. Like I said, it's slightly, give or take 55-45 or whatever, 60-40, somewhere up in there, you know, and what have you. But so, you just looked at it and thought that, okay, Oregon's going to give them a really good game. They had played previously in the regular season. Everybody knows that went down to the wire. That a game that Ohio State did not pull out. They had an opportunity to, but they didn't. So they lost by 1 to Oregon at Oregon. And Oregon has been clicking on all cylinders too. So there was no reason to think that they weren't not going to show up. However, they did. And I was confused sitting out in the stands like, this is not the Oregon team. What team is that? I don't know. Did they get kidnapped somewhere in the hotel or something on their way down to Pasadena from Oregon? I don't know. It was like this team I couldn't recognize. Nobody in the stadium could recognize this Oregon team because that sure was not the same Oregon that we had come to know this whole season. And they just didn't have an answer for what Ohio State was doing. And, from the minute that they marched down the field in the first opening series and every series after that, they were just scoring after score after score. And it was just like Oregon was not trying to answer that. They were just simply just trying to do stuff that just wasn't going to be effective, and they needed to score. And they were acting like they had plenty of time to try to get back in the game. And each time that they didn't, all these 3 and outs, or they might get a first down, then they go 3 and out the next series and everything, and then it was just not their day at all, period. Very disappointing on the Oregon side to that game. Now, again, credit to Ohio State. They just continued what they did from the first round game against Tennessee, and clearly looked like, again, the best team, and certainly they look like a team who should have been ranked higher, but that's how it goes. Now, let me pause on some things to get into that, because when the seedings came out, okay, and people are clamoring about, this the seeding is this, that, and the other, but we have to remember, folks, that this is the way the agreement was set up with the conferences, okay, and unanimously, mind you, okay. I'm going to emphasize that, because in order to get this playoff that we do have now with the 12 teams, it was to be agreed upon by all of the conference in a unanimous vote. So if someone's dissenting, then we wouldn't have had this. Now, people are in the media primarily, ESPN and other folks out there are talking about, not so much like the brass of ESPN, but folks, some other people around through ESPN and other outlets, CBS Sports, Fox Sports, and all the other ones. They're saying, they should be making some changes and this and that and the other. But take these things one at a time here, okay? Again, the agreement that the conference is set up to get that, so that you can get every conference on board, and that included the conference champions having the top highest champions having a bye. Okay. This needs not to be, what's to be confused about that? And if they are to make a change to that, then we likely won't have a playoff the way it is, because why would any conference make a decision on something that's going to hurt them? You think the Big 12, you think the Mountain West, you think the ACC in particular, those 3 conferences want to do away with the automatic bye for the champion? Why would they want to do that when their teams might get ranked 11th or 12th without the opportunity to have the bye? Why would they want to do that? Why would they want to change from that? Okay. This is one of the biggest things that I keep hearing these people talk about, and they just failing to understand that. Okay. So so they're not going to do away with the buy. Um, uh, so they're not going to do away with the buy, not in any short term order. Okay. Unless there's some other incentives, such as a guarantee of two or more teams, which means you might have to expand the playoff to get that. Okay. So, because as it were, you had the Big 12 and the Mountain West only getting one team in there. Now, but I'll save all that conversation a little later, okay? After the playoffs and all the stuff, other stuff. Let me continue with my preview, okay? Because I don't want to get away from that part. But as I was saying, because people were talking about the seedings and how Ohio State, first of all, Ohio State had to play Tennessee, and then let alone Oregon had to play the winner of that game, which ended up being Ohio State. And then you look at Oregon, and it's like they got ran over because of they had to play the toughest team, the team that was playing the best ball, and Ohio State. And then they lost. So it's like all of that went for naught. They have this whole undefeated season, the conference championship, and all that stuff. And then they're bounced out in the first game that they play. Okay. How did that happen for them? Well, again, in bracket play, you have to have the way those brackets, especially with 12 teams, seated the way they're seated. Because what else are they going to do with that? So, anyhow, Ohio State, again, boat races Oregon. Then next up for them is Texas, right? Again, another team that a lot of people thought was going to be a good game, and it was a good game. Okay, a game. However, as I was watching it, as I was observing it, I really felt confident that Ohio State was going to pull it out, even though Texas had an opportunity to tie the game. I just felt like the momentum of the shifts in the game was always leaning toward the Buckeyes because Texas was always playing catch up. Okay. Um, Ohio State came out and scored first, then Texas, and it was a tight game. Texas, as we all know, there was heading into halftime, it was going to be 7-7. However, the big blunder that Texas made, as we all know, with that corny blitz, and then you had the screen pass, and then the guy running 75 yards for a touchdown, and then they go to halftime, it's 14-7. Then Texas gets some life, and they tie the game up at 14-14, right? Then Ohio State goes up again, and Texas has an opportunity to come down and score at the 1 yard line. Besides, we get to all the penalties and all that stuff, and then at the 1 yard line, and then they go backwards. And then they go further backwards with the fumble, and that's ball game wrap. Ohio State moves on. Okay. So Texas did some things, and that's what I'm going to get into when I get into the keys of the game and all that stuff. So I'm going to give a little breakdown to that. So again, just covering to how we got here. How did Ohio State get there? As they moved on, they did what they needed to do to win the game. Even though they're all everything receiver, Jeremiah Smith, freshman sensation, was shut down and all that, they still found a way to win the game. And that's what great teams do, find a way to win a game. Now, let's get to their opponent, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Similar type team, overcoming obstacles, not necessarily playing their best, but they find ways to win, okay? And they play as a team, as a unit. So Notre Dame starts off with the in-state you can call them a rival. I guess they're not really rivals, even though they're in-state universities. But they're in-state university, Indiana, who's had the season of all seasons in this program history. Okay, winning 11 games, going 11-1, only lost to Ohio State. And so people want to see, okay, can Indiana play with the big boys? They didn't do that against the team that the ranked team that they lost to, which is Ohio State. So they didn't do anything there. And then we kept hearing from Coach Sig that things were going to be different. That Indiana learned their lesson and they know how they have to play in these big games, etc. Well, not much didn't change from that because Notre Dame pretty much again dominated that game from the start and took care of business against Indiana with a comfortable win at home to move on to play Georgia. Now, Georgia, as we all know, in this unfortunate, lost its starting quarterback. So now it's playing its backup. However, people still was giving Georgia a good shot to win that game. Now, because Notre Dame is a team that likes to run, which plays into the wheelhouse of what Georgia's defense is stout about. So Georgia is their weakness was their passing defense, their back end play wasn't as good, and people took advantage of that. And so this game was more about the special teams and the defense and the poor offensive line of Georgia. And Notre Dame goes in and wins that game, especially with that special teams kickoff return. And that was pretty much sealed the deal. That was ball game right there. And they come out with a victory of 23-10. And there you go. And Notre Dame moves on to play Penn State. And we saw what happened in that, where Notre Dame came back. They were down 10-0, and they came back, tied the game up 10-10, take the lead. Then it ties up again. And then we thinking possibly this game's going to go to overtime. Well, not so fast, as Lee Corso would say, because there was an interception with less than a minute to go, which gave Notre Dame time enough to move the ball close enough to get a field goal, which they did with only seconds remaining in the game. And then that was your ball game right there. So, so Notre Dame moves on. They're in the national championship. These are like the cardiac kids in a way because they play with everything they have. They don't have the whole roster of 5 stars, 4 stars, and 5 stars like Ohio State does, but they play as a team. They play as a unit, and it's always next man's up with them. Without a doubt, they just continue to play and win, and that's what it takes at this one. I've said from get-go when the playoffs were announced that it's the team with the strongest depth was going to be able to survive and take it to the championship. And Notre Dame sure has some depth because they've been losing players like I don't know nobody's business, dropping like flies, and they continue to move on. Now against Ohio State is going to be a whole different ball game. So those guys are going to really have to show it. Now, so let me get into a few keys to what this game will dictate it. I'm going to make my prediction on my next broadcast. So hang tight. This one is just doing a little preview. The next one I'm going to make my prediction on the game. So what I look at as keys. So again, starting with what we believe Ohio State's going to want to do, and then what Notre Dame's going to want to do. Okay, so let's start offensively for Ohio State. They want to throw the ball. Of course, they want to get it to the playmakers. They want to do what they've done in these games prior to the Texas game, where they was throwing the ball over the field, getting into their all everything, Jeremiah Smith, and lighting up the scoreboard. That's what they want to do. Okay. Now, will they be able to do that? That's the big question of it. And why did they go away from that against Texas? Well, Texas have a strong defense and a back end. So they, again, matchups makes fights. So it's not just as if that you can just do what you want to do against a team if you know they've got some strength there and they're taking away what you want to do. So that's what dictated, which is why in the Texas game they weren't able to do in the passing game like they wanted to do in the previous game because of the way the defense was playing. They were taken away. There wasn't no man open. How you going to throw the ball to somebody if nobody's open? Simple as that. So you have to give it what the defense, you got to take what the defense gives you. And so now against Notre Dame, which likes to play man, which has played man for most of their time, they're going to be needing to mix things up. Okay. They're going to need to disguise some things in lieu of that. So I'll get to their defense in a second. But let's continue with Ohio State's offense. So again, passing the ball, throwing deep, throwing it to Jeremiah Smith, and utilizing the weapons. And then in the run game, again, they want to run. They like to run the ball. Will they be able to run effectively up the middle is the key. We certainly know they have the speed to get outside. And so they're probably going to try to utilize that, getting outside, running outside, using probably some zone blocking schemes and stuff like that. To get, so that means, getting the guards pulling and doing a lot of that stuff like that, are doing some, sort of reverse run game packages and so forth. That's what I kind of see them doing as far as the run game on the offensive side. But they want to push it because they want to score and score early, score fast, put the pressure on Notre Dame's offense to respond. Okay, so Notre Dame has to play from behind. This is what Ohio State wants to do, dictating the pace. Okay, which is going to be key. Whoever can dictate the pace of the game, that's going to be my number one indicator of how that game is going to go. So if Notre Dame is, or whoever is dictating the pace of the game, then that's going to be a key factor in this. Now, Ohio State's defense, let's look at them, what they want to do. So what Ohio State's defense want to do against Notre Dame's offense, again, one, they got to contain the quarterback run of Riley Leonard. They're going to have to make sure that so they might have a spy on him, okay, defensively, so that they can contain from him and make him pass the ball. This is what they want to do. They don't want a Notre Dame getting its run game established. They want Notre Dame to throw the ball, get them in third and long, second and long, so they have to throw the ball. But even if it's like third and long, not just like, because third and 8 for Notre Dame is almost like 3rd and 3 because of the quarterback option run, you see. And Riley Leonard is very capable of extending plays in situations such as that when they have 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8. He's capable of getting those yardage. So, and I'm not saying it's automatic, but it's greater than 50% of the time. He can get a first down on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, and that. So it's not necessarily that they're dependent upon a passing game in those long. Where you really want to be effective is 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12 if you back them up to some degree in that sense of it. Then, of course, that's going to be more than likely a passing situation. So any 3rd and distance is favorable to Ohio State. Okay. So that's where they want to play the short and long game with Notre Dame, is keeping them in 3rd and long distances so that Notre Dame must pass the ball or they're in passing situations. and playing from behind. Okay. So, because the further they get behind, certainly by more than 2 scores, then that's going to push Notre Dame to pass the ball. Now, Notre Dame, and then let me continue with the Ohio State defense. So, like their front seven is really good for Ohio State. So they want to utilize that. If they can get pressure, if they can make stops with their front seven without adding any additional pass rush and that type of thing, then they're going to have a game. They're going to be right in their wheelhouse on what they want to do, which would be favorable to Ohio State. Okay, so you got that. The back end on Ohio State is as good as anybody. I mean, you got NFL talent on that roster, left and right on that defense. So they're going to, they can play pretty much man against Notre Dame's receivers because Notre Dame receivers are not nowhere near equivalent to what Ohio State has in their receiving corps. And these defenders, they go up against the best receivers in the country every practice. So there's nothing that the Notre Dame receivers are going to do that they haven't seen, one. And those receivers from Notre Dame aren't nearly as big either as the receivers for Ohio State. So the size matchups are not going to be necessarily a factor. Where Notre Dame is going to have to get real sneaky when I have to talk about that. Where Ohio State is going to have to watch for it. Let me just start with the defense. Is they're going to have to watch for the Notre Dame utilizing the tight end. That's what's going to be key in the pass game for Notre Dame is how they use the tight end. Watch for that. Okay, so let me get to Notre Dame's offense. Okay, now again, we already know that Notre Dame is highly effective and highly efficient using the quarterback in the run game. And he's going to be utilized in this running game as well. So that's how they're going to get started. They want to get started quickly, establishing the run, showing Ohio State that they can run the ball. They want this to be a street fight. They want this game. Notre Dame would love this game mimicking what the Michigan game was. A drag out, slug out, low scoring game that's keeping Notre Dame around within a score. And that's how they want to play this game. They want to pull Ohio State into that. So what's key to that is the defense, which I'm going to get to in a second. So, but offensively, so that means that if Notre Dame is able to run the ball, if, like I said, Riley Leonard can keep moving the chains, because that's all they need to do is keep moving the chains now and get short field, because they're not going to likely be Notre Dame offensively. They're not going to have no 13-play, 15-play drives, driving 70 yards and 80 yards down the field on Ohio State. No. They're going to want or need shorter differences. Okay, they're going to need the ball around the 45, the 50, or on the other side of on the Ohio State side. This is where they're going to so that means they got to have the outstanding defensive help to do that and special teams to do that. But they still are capable of putting together a drive. Don't expect, unless there's a lapse on which is not very often of Ohio State's defense, especially on their back end, to a defender falling down like you saw in the Penn State game. Don't expect that. Okay, so they're gonna try to on Notre Dame, that is, offensively. They want to step the run. They're going to do it. They're going to push them. But I think that they're going to come out as well in throwing the ball in early downs. I think that they're going to mix it up enough to where, like I said, utilizing their tight end, utilizing the backs, and mixing it up. And because, the O-line on Notre Dame is hurting. So they have to compensate for that. That means that they want to put their O-line in an adaptation positions. They don't want to have these guys going mano a mano, trying to hold these guys up for 5-10 seconds. That's way too long. They're going to get beat. So that means they're going to have to get the ball out quick. It's going to be a lot of short passing game, like I said, which also what Notre Dame is going to do is they want to incorporate packages for the tight end, slipping into spots where the tight end can get the ball. Again, Riley Leonard opening up, running, so to keep the defense honest. So then hopefully they can maybe throw a pass or two in 15 or 20 plus yards and score that way. That's what they want to do. Now, on the defensive side for Notre Dame, again, contain. Keep take the playbook that Michigan did, take the playbook that even Texas did to some degree. Because that kid, Jeremiah Smith, only had one catch against Texas. You hear that? One catch against Texas. He was shut down. And so Notre Dame wants to do the same thing. They want to shut this kid down. If let him catch a couple balls, but they're not going to be no 30, 40-yard passes. They're not going to be no 20-something yard passes. They're going to keep it short. And so, of course, Ohio State, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get him in effectively in the offense early, which doing some, they're going to do some screen stuff. They're going to do some bubble screen stuff. They're going to do some end arounds and all that kind of stuff. Trying to get the ball in his hands because they're not going to let what happened against Texas happen again this game. So, but this is how the chess match goes. So Notre Dame, if they're smart, they need to try to utilize the same sort of principles defensively to get this game into a slugfest and get this game to the fourth quarter. Okay, because it's going to be a close game. I see that. And then, because everyone's saying Notre Dame doesn't have a chance. So Notre Dame is hearing all this stuff. They don't have a chance. So they're going to take, like I said, they've been the underdogs. They've been hearing this all season pretty much, especially in the playoffs. Oh, you might not beat Indiana. You can't beat Georgia. You can't beat Penn State. And every time they've taken on the challenge and they come out victorious. And so they're gonna come out not scared. They're gonna come out wanting to do what they do. The keys are mistakes. The keys are turnovers. The keys are not having missed assignments. The keys are, again, penalties, not having none, especially at key moments in the game when you got drives being put together and all that kind of stuff. And the kicking game, like I said, the special teams play is going to be critical in this game for sure. And so this is how I see a lot of the things and the pieces of the game and where it's going to go, what's going to be dictated, the pace of the game. Certainly who scores first. Notre Dame offensively needs to score, or however they offense, defense, it don't matter. They need to score first. They don't want Ohio State to score. If they do score, let it be a field goal. But in terms of the touchdown, Notre Dame needs to score a touchdown first. They need the first one to score a touchdown. And then if their defense is stout, can do some things to shut down the passing game of Ohio State, then that'll work in their favor. But what would be more favorable for Notre Dame is, again, a slug-out game where they're not, because if Ohio State is behind by 2 scores, then they're going to be throwing the ball around. They're gonna take the chance, and because they got to get back into a game. If they're down 10-0, 13-0, 14-0, or something like that, then they're going to start throwing that ball. And And like I said, they have a quick strike offense that 14 points is nothing, and so they can get back into a game. Now, scoring one they can do, but scoring two maybe not so much because Notre Dame is going to be prepared for that. So they know if they score once, what to do to prevent them to quick striking, so that they don't squander a lead. I'm saying. So if Notre Dame, for example, was up 14-0 or up by 14, 24-10 or whatever it is, 17-3 or something, um, and then Ohio State scores, so now it's a 7-point score game, then you think they're going to just sit soft and let them go down the field again and score very easily? No, no, no. They're going to be prepared for that. They're going to know what they want to do against Ohio State so that they can patent the lead and keep the lead comfortable enough to control the game. So they're going to want it to be a comfortable 7 to 10 point lead, which will get to the final result. So that's what they're dependent upon. The defense keeping them in the game and the offense not losing the game. Okay. So the offense needs to score and show capability to score. Okay. That's going to be big, that they have to show the capability that they can score. And if they can do that, then you're going to have a serious game on your hands here. And because, like I said, they don't want to get into no passing attack game. They want a game that's going to be a slugfest, knock it out, drag out, street brawl, and and have Ohio State, on their heels, okay, with some things that they are not expecting and so forth. Ohio State wants to do what Ohio State does. They're not looking at, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. They just want to play how they played against Tennessee and against Oregon. That's what they want to do. And everybody knows that, and stuff. And they have seen what they have done against those teams. So you don't think that they're going to try to scheme for that now, knowing what they know. And that, okay, fooled me once. It was kind of like, okay, we did that with Tennessee, okay, and then when then Oregon, you thought would have been sitting there watching and saying, okay, we ain't gonna let what happened to them happen to us. But sure enough, it did. And they just they're just the play call and the defense and everything was just not there for Oregon. So and then once you get to the Texas game, Texas had some stuff for them. And so I see similarly, like I said, the Notre Dame defense playing very similar to what Michigan did and what Texas did to stifle the offense of Ohio State. Because you remember, they only scored, they scored 3 offensive touchdowns. And so, but the thing is that they were not just doing what they wanted to do, to get those scores. So that's what I'd say. All right. So that's going to be my wrap on the preview for the national championship game. I will have another one coming up where I'm going to do my score prediction and all that good stuff. So appreciate you folks tuning in. Don't forget to smash that like button on my channel. I appreciate it, all that. And we'll see coming up as we get closer to the kickoff and the game day and all that fun stuff, how this national championship is going to go again. And we'll see how that works out. No SEC teams in there. Ain't that something? And lastly here, I want to give a shout out to the people of LA. I was at the, national championship there in 2023. I'm from LA. And, again, we want to send much thoughts to the folks out there to stay strong under the circumstances as they are right now. You will get through it. Trust me. All right. No more talk for now. Have a good one.